Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I'm your host, John McDavitt, and this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. I want to take a moment and I want to thank my audience for reaching out to me and just sharing their stories, sharing how the episodes have impacted them. A lot of the guests have impacted them. Some of what I have shared in my solo episodes have been beneficial to you. And I just really love hearing from my audience. You guys make it all worthwhile. And it's just been a blast to connect with you across Facebook, across Twitter, across Instagram, and even on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for your encouragement. And yeah, that's just really, really cool. I guess you don't have a show if nobody's watching. And I'm just so glad to know that it is having an impact on many of you folks out there. Warms my heart. So, with that being said, my guest today is Catherine Borzym. Catherine is a whirlwind of a creative force. Her background is as a jewelry maker and a craftsperson, and selling her works and wares in farmers markets and craft shows, and moving up into higher end clientele before making a pivot into marketing and graphic design and websites, and even now selling some of her very own product to clients for them to use in their marketing and branding and whatnot. Now, Catherine is a really joyful person. She's got a great attitude, and she's just kind of bright. If she was a light, she'd be a really bright, bright light in the room, and you wouldn't be able to miss her. And it's because of that attitude, and it's because she just keeps on going, which reminds me of a phrase I just love because it's so true. Action brings clarity. And action has brought all kinds of clarity to Catherine's journey, which she is going to share with you in just a moment. But first, I do want to ask, would you please subscribe to the show, whether you're listening on a podcast or you're watching on YouTube? Just take a moment and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, also hit that notification button, and new episodes will come to your attention if you hit that button. They'll pop up whenever you check your YouTube account. And then if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, would you please give the show a 5-star review, and then leave me, I guess you leave a 5-star rating, but if you would leave me a review, that would be really beneficial too. So if the show means something to you and you could take a moment, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so very much. And then if you've been listening recently, you've heard me talking about my coaching business, that I am offering business coaching for artists. And no matter where you're at, if you're looking to pivot and you've been in the business for a while and you're trying to figure out how to do it, and you need help in some specific area, whether it's contacting clients or how to price and how to charge for your work and how to set terms, I can help you with that. I've been through it all. And if you're just getting started and you know you're going to have some of those same things in mind, but maybe you just don't even know where to start, you can go to the link down in the description of this episode, and you'll see it down there for business coaching for artists. And you'll be amazed at what we can get done in a short period of time. So go ahead and give that a click if you're interested, or send it on to a friend maybe who you think might be benefited by that. Is that even a way to say it? Be benefited by? I guess that's proper English, but it's kind of awkward, so I apologize for that. All right, without further ado, let's get into my interview with Catherine Borzym.
My name is Catherine Borzym. I own Kiwi Avenue, which is a graphic design website branding company. I started, 2006 with this, and it started out as a jewelry business. And we transitioned many years later into a website graphic design business.
Awesome. That's an interesting kind of
Correct.
curveball,
Transition. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So how did you get from there to here? Like, where did you start?
Sure. So I started when Kiwi Avenue was a jewelry business. I helped friends design jewelry to match their homecoming and prom dresses. So I found a need. Everybody had these beautiful dresses, but nobody had the jewelry to match. And so I picked out the beads. I knew what color dress, and then I presented it in a little Ziploc bag, and for $20 or whatever, you got your customized jewelry. And then that transitioned into
So hang on,
helping.
let's go back to
Yeah, okay,
that.
there's
How
more.
how
Yeah.
old were you when you were doing that?
That was probably, I don't know, 6th and 7th grade, 8th grade.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And so you saw this need, but it's also really cool that you married it to income. Like, you're like,
Sure.
this is a
I
business.
was like, hey, take your Ziploc, crack me your cash. Yeah.
Would you design them with the person knowing that they were going to get it, or would you design it, make it, and then say, hey?
I think I asked if someone needed jewelry, and then I knew what color or what style or whatever it was to match. So I already had the customer lined up.
That's so cool.
The budget and the
yeah. That's a microcosm of business right there.
Yeah, correct. As soon as you got your cash in the envelope, I'm happy to give you the Ziploc.
And you did that way too?
I did.
You made sure you got paid?
The merchandise, correct. You didn't get that. No.
That's so cool.
No payment plan. Give me
Because that's it, right? You see a need, and then you say, hey, I can fill that need. And then you go ask somebody.
I learned that somewhere. I think I just, I don't think there wasn't really like a business class that I took that said, hey, go do this. I just was looking around, and I'm like, well, I like to make stuff. Sure. I'll, you got a pink dress? No problem. I'll make something,
What was before that, as far as like your creative world?
Before that, I liked painting, and I really, really liked, what is it called? Pastels.
Okay.
So I did chalk pastels. So I like to draw endangered species in chalk pastels.
And like, was that something that you had support on from family or?
Sure. And that was just that wasn't necessarily for anyone or for business. That was just absolutely. My parents always helped support or give me the, cool art supplies that I needed, or, to test stuff out and see if I liked it. So always. Yeah. And my mom's an art teacher and my dad's in business. So.
Okay. Well, my goodness.
Got a little bit of both.
Now we know where you came from, right?
Exactly. Yeah, both sides of my brain, both correct. The analytical and the artistic, all come into.
So 7th and 8th grade is kind of when you started your jewelry business. How did that go then through the rest of school? So that transition to helping, I think it was around 8th grade, I helped my mom write a art curriculum guide. Yeah.
And then I helped her sell it at the National Art Education Association conference.
Interesting.
So I helped represent a booth. I helped teachers, learn about the what the book can do for you, how the curriculum can help you, how it's aligned to your national art education standards. Sold it. At that time, we were doing a printed book and then a CD. So I designed the artwork for the CD, for the cover, for the, I did the design of the book. And then they allowed us to, at the end of the day, sell like at a little booth. You bought like a little table or whatever. And I had my jewelry there. And we had a massive line, I don't know, 30, 40 people all waiting to come to my booth. And I was like, well, this is fascinating. And it was all the art teachers, and they loved the stuff too. So the homecoming, and prom people like it, and the, art teachers. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Other people, also find this interesting and, work for their wardrobes, not necessarily a prom dress. Now it's kind of everyday wear.
Yeah. So that's like, that sounds like your first love, right?
Yeah.
Like that decor, design, and then making. the actual art for people to wear.
Sure.
And then you've got this experience with your mom where you said you actually helped her put together this curriculum.
Yeah. I helped design it. I did the cover. I did a really, really, really long time ago. I did a website for her. I think we did it on Wix a million years ago. Because I knew I needed, again, somehow in my mind, I knew I needed the supporting materials. You needed the banner design, what the CD looks like with the book, what your table should look like, all the supporting things. So
that's so good. And so here you're getting all of this experience. You got the support of mom, and then kind of the coda to it is like you're selling your art on top of it to all these art teachers.
Yep.
And how old were you at that point?
I don't even know. So I don't know, 14-ish maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what was next? What came after that?
After that, I continued jewelry. My next big thing was landing I learned how to do wholesale, and I landed one of my friends needed a representative for the Chicago Merchandise Mart, the handmade exhibit. So she needed somebody to rep her booth. And so, of course, I'm like, sure, I can do that. So it was 15 different brands I represented in my booth. So I had to learn about them, how to sell them, what their, minimum orders were. And I landed an Overstock.com account for myself. And I watched them walk by, and I remember being so nervous because I was at this booth. I didn't really know what I was doing. But I thought, your jewelry's on display in this booth. Like, now is the time to do it. And my heart was racing. And I remember watching them walk back and forth at the booth across from me. And I'm like, come on, we can do this. And then, the other side of my brain is like, yeah, but you don't, you're new to this. What can you give them? And then I finally just said, well, I'm here. So let's, hi, I'm Catherine. And I, showed them, and they loved it. And they were so excited. And, we signed a contract. And that was a pretty cool moment. I was at the, Beckman's Handmade. I landed this. I was able to sell all the different products in my booth. And it was kind of a neat experience.
Was that your booth, or were you
somebody else's booth? And so they had, so that was like a what was it called? I think the brand was like Sourcing Handmade, and they had you paid to be a part of the booth. So we all essentially split the booth fee. Is what it was.
So 15 of you then,
correct,
right?
Correct. So everybody had little tiny sections. Correct.
Yeah.
So we had soap and dog collars, and so nothing could, in the same category. So I had, a little bit of everything in my booth.
Would you say you knew how to sell before that, or were you kind of learning on the fly?
I think I've always been learning on the fly. Again, there was I don't think any formal training still. I took a formal training class in college once, but that was about it. But at that point, nothing. I just liked relationships and people and helping them. And if they needed this for their store, let's talk and see if we can make something happen. So I never really viewed it as sales, I guess, which I think is a good thing, because then I didn't stop myself from, doing it. I just kept going. So
I don't hear a lot of fear in your voice, any step along the way. You just kind of went in and were like, I'll do this.
I do. I like making stuff up is my motto in life. And then you go and you try again, and that didn't work. Let's, so that's always kind of been I don't know how I've always done things, even from an early age. Let's give this a try. What's the worst that could happen? If you don't know how to talk and you don't sell anything, so what? At least I gave it my, all. But
yeah, I think that's one of the major keys to, as probably life in general,
sure,
is not being afraid to fail.
Yeah, I'm good at that. Yeah, I'm good at the failure part because I figure it out. I go, okay,
Yeah.
hey, that wasn't exactly what I wanted, or, hey, this overstock.com thing is a lot, because once I got that was exciting, but then you have to do the weighing of the chain. How many ounces? What's the length? How big is the box that fits into the other box for shipping? So it was a lot of, make your photos look really professional. So that was another, I got a light box and a light kit, and to figure out how to make it look, like everything else on Overstock. And I think the collection that I had on Overstock was called Love Letters, which were my monograms, like initials. Yeah. So there was an uppercase on one side and a lowercase on the other, with these really cool, like, Kiwi Avenue tags.
For your part of the product, were you hand making all your own product too?
I bought the charms, but I assembled, I created the cards and stuff like that. But
how much work was that with the orders that came in?
A lot. And it's wholesale prices, not retail. So the whole goal with retail is to sell a lot, Yeah. But I learned, and I went, okay, this is great. Now, what's next?
Yeah.
Let's see what comes after that is all of the hundreds and hundreds of farmers markets I attended. We did art shows, we did local fairs and holiday events and stuff like that. And as the years went by, the bigger my booth space began. So I used to have, one table. Now I have a 10 by 10. Now I have a 10 by 20 with, it takes 2 cars to set all the beautiful displays up. And then my dad came with me to every event. And so he sold jewelry at, 6 a.m. at a farmer's market in Morris. Every Saturday we were there. And my deal that we created was buy any 2 pieces of jewelry, get a free pair of earrings. And that would convince whoever, as long as you buy one more thing, you get something else that you can keep or you can give away, or, perfect for gifts, or, and that was kind of my, shtick, so to speak. And and it was fun doing it, but it's a lot of work.
Were you doing that at the same time as the wholesaling?
Yeah.
So those were both happening at the same time.
So I did, and then I got the wholesaling into a handful of boutiques, and then my boutiques sold. So I sold Kiwi Avenue to boutiques, and then they sold those pieces. I did a high-end collection for, it's called Dean's in downtown Naperville. And so I had a high-end collection I designed for them too. One of my professors at North Central connected me to them. So I had like a high-end, sterling silver only and semi-precious stones collection for them. So.
How old were you around that time?
I was probably 18 or so.
So you had you had a full career going on.
Did.
By then.
Yep.
And was there an end game in mind for you at all with that?
I don't think there was really ever a game. I didn't really realize I was in a, hey, this could be my career.
Yeah.
I jump into things, like we had talked about, learning to build your plane as you're flying, because I loved it, because I loved helping people, because I loved matching their outfits, because I loved, the mom and daughter walking away and having matching necklaces. And I created that for them in the back of my booth. And I didn't really, yes, I was making money, but it was also, I was helping a lot of people. And everything is Kiwi green. So my tablecloths, my booth spaces. So every time you'd walk by, you can't miss the, massive amount of Kiwi green in the booth spaces too. And then people would notice the color too when they went to other markets. Oh yeah, I saw you, a couple years ago at that, so-and-so by the water. I'm like, yeah, that was me.
Branding at the farmers markets.
Branding at the farmers market. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And working on my beautiful displays. I didn't just have tables and tablecloths. I had custom built I had a friend build these beautiful, like, velvet black on the top and kiwi green around the edges, custom tablecloths. So they fit perfectly on a 6-foot folding table. So they look, it's like a custom experience with we used to have like shutters that I used to attach the earrings and stuff to. So we'd have like plastic shutters that I found at the Restore or whatever, and bird cage and all the stuff we used to design. I used to do weddings. We had a wedding collection. I did a couple weddings for professors in college. It was a fun journey, but it was hard to set up, and and sometimes there were thunderstorms or tornadoes or whatever, and then of course jewelry like flies when you have any kind of a storm, so you got to just kind of shove it in a bag and hope for the best at a later date. So
yeah, that's a tough one when you're at the whim
outdoor
of the weather.
Sure.
And outside of Chicago, it's like, or in Chicago, even Chicago can be volatile.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's so cool. I just love, I love that your parents, supported you in this. Like, I don't hear anything about, they had any questions. It was kind of like,
nope, they helped me make the jewelry at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, we got a couple more hours before the show, and they're, helping punch earring cards and make sure that the jewelry is all, tagged. I used to, I had a folded business card, and you cut it in half, so it makes a little like folded square essentially. And then I used to put the stone names, because I used to work in semi-precious stones, so people would know, this is green garnet, this is chrysocolla, this is, jade, this is whatever. And then they knew, when they gave it as a gift or whatever, hey, these are the stones behind it, which was kind of, a neat.
How vast was your collection? Like all of your products?
I mean, my inventory that I still have extras of that I do. So tackle boxes that you use for tackle. That's what I organized my beads in by color. So I probably had at least 100, maybe 200 tackle boxes full. Correct.
Wow.
Organized by size, by price, what I paid for it, what I, how many beads per strand. And then I had
you knew where it all was, right?
Correct. I knew where it was. And I brought a lot of the charms to the booth because I would customize behind the booth. So they would go, okay, I want this monogram, that birthstone, and the number 3, because there's, whatever, my lucky number is 3. And then I'd put it in a beautiful necklace, and then, I'd say, come back in 20 minutes, and then they'd come back, and, my dad would be selling, and I'd go, let me finish up my necklace, and away it went. Yeah.
So how did you work out your profit? Like were you profitable throughout this? And was that was on the forefront of your mind as well?
Yeah, it was. So I was always making sure that's where I was counting the beads, counting the strands. So I knew, this is a really expensive necklace, or this is a $30 necklace. So I knew, going into it, whatever I'm putting out there, makes a profit, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, and we used to do the Frankfurt Frankfurt Fall Festival. And that was our biggest show. And again, we were a 10 by 20 at that point. And because I had been going for so many years, they gave me a corner space. And the corner space is great because then you can sell on 3 sides of your booth. And so we knew how to, position the tables or position the mirrors or whatever. So it was just a vast, amount of selling space. We had our little bagging area. So all of my bags, tissue paper, everything is kiwi green. So you just get a massive amount of things to go home with that are also that color, that brand, that, product that you're taking home.
So how long did you do that season of life?
I would say probably about 13 years.
Okay. So well into your 20s.
Correct. Yep.
And you mentioned school.
Yep. I did Kiwi Avenue all throughout school at North Central College.
Yeah.
And at that point, all of the projects that I did in school were also for Kiwi Avenue. So my professors go, yeah, okay, use your business for, for this, business plan pitch or, exactly. And I'm like, okay, perfect. And everyone's like, yeah, I'll go help Catherine, because Catherine has an actual business, but not a fake business that we're making up. It's actually, she's working on it right now.
And what was your major, your focus in school?
So I have a small business entrepreneurship and a marketing degree. So I double majored in both that again. And I think in my head, I thought I think I loved doing jewelry in Kiwi Avenue. I just didn't know how to turn this into my life or business. Or, I was doing it, but I didn't, so I'm like, well, I got to go to school. I got to get my degree. So I guess why don't I do two things that I know will support this business is kind of what I, chose. Yeah. But it, was, I think, the perfect blend of exactly what I was looking for, and helped me hone my skills and meet some amazing people and professors and mentors that helped me and still help me to this day.
So how, it's very self-aware to as a, a teen or a 20, well, everything you've done so far is really self-aware, but then to have the business and to be making money and then to go, I need more, like I need to go to school. I need to back this up with some strength of knowledge. Correct. How did that come to be for you?
I think it was, again, I have this cool business. What can I do to make it better? And that's where the, North Central was close to my parents. I didn't have to go very far. I went from Plainfield to Naperville. I stayed on campus, and, I loved the people, the small, feel, the fact that it was only a couple of blocks to get to all your classes.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the people, the mentors were so amazing, because I'm always the one in class that asks tons of questions or stays after, or, hey, can I grab coffee with you later? I don't understand this. And so I built, really cool relationships with people. Like I said, that a lot of them I still talk to. So yeah, they became my, friends later too.
How did the mentors impact you at that time of life?
I had a lot of mentors. I would say, so yeah, one of my first mentors was Jerry Tallman, and he was in accounting. And so when I first got to North Central, because I liked Professor Tallman so much, I decided that my major should be accounting, which is not me at all. And just because I liked him. And so I thought, oh, maybe this is the right path for me. But the cool thing with him is he's part of a group it was called SIFE, but now it's called Enactus, and it's like a make the world a better place business, group. And then I was a part of that for 4 years. And they work with farmers in Guatemala, and they have this amazing coffee line. Mm-hmm. And I did the projects with them for 4 years, but then the last, I guess, like 2 or 3, I was on the speaking team. And so we were speaking in front of CEOs of top companies, of Walmart, and all sorts of other companies, but the CEOs are actually sitting in front of us, and that's who we're presenting to. So I think that's where I got my love for speaking and presenting, and working on PowerPoints, and mm-hmm. So a lot comes from a lot of different places.
Yeah,
but it's neat that so many people have helped me along the way. And I'm always sitting in somebody's office and going, hey, can we work on this? Or what do you think about, hey, here's my new wholesale collection. What do you think? And they go, oh, that looks nice, but Did you consider shipping? No. Okay, sounds good. Let me go back. One moment. Exactly. So
So
yeah,
they were people who fed into you. They'd
sure.
answer your questions, they'd
Yep,
challenge you, and then they'd
absolutely.
encourage you.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. And Dr. Ernst too was wonderful.
Yeah.
And he's the one that I mentioned earlier for Dean's. I think it was right when I had started wholesaling. He's like, oh, I've got a connection for you. I'm like, what is it? Okay. And so he actually set up a meeting with the buyer, and he came with me,
Yeah.
and he and I had worked on my presentation, what my price points were, all that kind of stuff. And I had a little, it was like a leather briefcase, and then it has these clips at the top, and then that's where all my necklaces hang. And so I brought my beautiful, leather briefcase in, and we sat down, and, she bought a bunch of stuff that matched her, whatever season it was. So I made sure that I had the season's colors in my collection. So
Gary was such
love Gary.
an unusual
Yep.
character,
Yeah.
in that and a character makes it sound cartoony. I don't mean any of that. He's this business-minded, entrepreneurial kind of. If you saw him, he's this button-down, straight-laced guy,
Sure.
and he saw this need for entrepreneurship in the arts,
Yep.
and he was such he is such an appreciative guy of creativity, and then marrying that to business.
Sure.
I mean, what a wonderful resource to have.
In the SEA conference, correct. And that's
Yeah.
why, that's actually Ernst and the SEA conference are how I met my best friend. He said, hey, Catherine, there's this girl, Madeline. She's going to go to this conference with you. You're going to drive her. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds good. I said, of course, my green Saturn view, the first time we met, the passenger side window leaked. So it leaked all over her pretty fancy outfit. Like, man, hi, thank you so much for coming. Perfect. Ernst, why did you do this to me? You gave me no heads up. But
and yet you became best friends.
We did, and she's my best friend, and I stood up in her wedding. So, and I'm actually, she married one of my other good friends as well too. But so yeah, and then I was a part of the SEA conference for so long. I went since freshman year of college because Ernst said, hey, go.
Yeah.
So that was been going for a really long time.
Yeah, for those in the audience, SEA is an organization called, the full name is Self-Employment in the Arts. And it is an organization that supports creatives from all kinds of focus, between dance, acting, music, performance, visual arts. I mean, you name it. And it's an organization that is there to support artists who are pursuing making a living through their own creative business. And that's actually how I met Catherine. And it's an incredible organization. And I had a friend come with me the year, well, I guess it was last year, right? Because COVID was just knocking on the door. We didn't even know what was yet to come. Yeah. And he's a salesman, and he'd been to a bunch of, conventions in his life, business conventions. And he could only stay for half a day, but he said to me he'd never been at a convention like that, where people connected so easily. It was so authentic in how the artists were cared for by those artists and business people who had their own businesses going at that point. And so it's a very, very special place. And Gary, who we were just mentioning, is the gentleman who really spearheaded the whole thing. And pretty amazing.
And I had no idea that there could be something that's blending the art and business world. Yeah. So they're helping you, make sure your business is profitable, or that you're working on a business plan, or, come on, let's make a mission statement, depending on what you need, or a portfolio review, depending on what, industry
Yeah.
you're in. So I think I think the universe knew that I needed to be at North Central. and all my, and all my people, like I said, a lot of them I still talk to, and I still work with Amy. I mean, I'm actually, to tie this into my, current world, Professor Tallman and Amy from the SEA conference are helping me create a coffee collection for my client, the Center for Suicide Awareness. And so we're branding these beautiful, like coffee in a cup. There's the PAX conference, the Penny Arcade Expo. She's got a massive booth. So we're going to have a really cool video game themed coffee line. We're going to have a Floyd for Farmers, so farmer suicide prevention collection. So Floyd is this beautiful cow illustration that we drew. So now I'm actually able to blend and use these amazing resources from college, and say, hey, I can connect these into my, current world.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty cool. And it was neat to see my client and my college and me sitting on a Zoom call and watching that we're all equals. It wasn't, talking down to the, just a few years out of college student. It was, we're all on the same page. We're all here to help and make the world a little bit better and kinder. And it was a really cool experience.
Yeah. And I mean, to be around people who are, because I mean, let's face it, when we're younger and we're starting out, there are a lot of things we don't know, right?
Sure.
And I mean, there still are a lot of things, but there, as far as business goes, you'll run into people who will leverage what you don't yet know, and or what you think you don't yet know, sure, against you.
Sure.
And to have people that you can trust who are generous and say, hey, look, don't walk behind me, like come and walk alongside of me. Yeah. And then even there's a part of that where they can, shield you from pain and trouble. And it's like, sure, you know what? Why don't, they may not say it like this, but it's like, why don't you stand behind me for a minute and I'll manage this. And cool. Then you learn.
Yeah, and here's a resource for you that'll help you with this. I was all for, articles or books or, what else can help me in the real world. Not all professors sit with you. It's your first boutique appointment that they've set up,
Right.
It takes a special person, and it takes someone that really wants you to succeed. Whatever I think, and I think whatever I would have told him I liked to do, he would have been just as supportive. Doesn't matter what industry or what, he just happened to have a connection, and hey, let me help you. And I didn't quite realize, I guess, till now, that I've always had those people in my life, even when I was, in 7th, 8th grade or whatever. I mean, all throughout my life, I've had somebody. Obviously, my parents are supportive, but somebody in school or whatever it was to support me and say, hey, let's do this, or, oh, that's a great idea, but let's try this, or, hey, let me see your new jewelry cards you just designed. Oh, those are pretty cool.
How was your internal self dealing with that first boutique meeting? Because you were pretty weathered by then. You'd
Sure.
been through.
But I didn't know how to sell to a boutique or what a boutique owner is looking for.
So how did you approach that?
I don't know what I was researching. I remember researching and reading articles on things. I remember I learned what a line sheet was, which was my wholesale sheet. So I knew what my terms were, how many pieces she had to buy, what the order minimum was. So I just did as much research as I could, and then just kind of did it. I mean, there isn't much else you can prepare after that. And then I just kind of, again, thought, well, okay, let's take this opportunity and see what happens. So,
Were
and
you
I tried not.
nervous in the
Oh
midst of
yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Oh, usually,
Yeah.
usually my heart's always racing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you get through that?
I try not to think about it, and then I just do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm still going to be nervous, but at least I
Yeah.
tried, whatever the hard thing was, talking to Overstock or sitting with the boutique owner. I'm like, well, come on, Catherine, you got this far. And, I talk to myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go do this now. If it doesn't go the way I wanted or was intending, so what? I learned something.
Yeah.
So that's another, you're always going to get something out of that hard thing that you're trying. Or you pivot and you go, hey, that was another thing. At the end of jewelry, I realized I was so exhausted and it wasn't as fun anymore because I was, the booth space to take down, set up, pack it in your, big pickup truck or whatever, take it inside, make sure everything is dry so nothing mildews, that whole part of the business wasn't fun for me anymore. It wasn't just me at a show, it was all of the, logistics behind it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got tired of, okay, it's 5 a.m. Let's go to a booth, when all my friends are out hanging out and, doing whatever, and it's summer.
Mm-hmm.
Versus I'm sweating, I had fans behind my booth. It's always fancy credit card processing before anybody really had Square. We were very tech savvy. Sign up for my email list on my tablet, correct.
So you made this transition then from doing the farmers markets to it sounds like more upscale wholesale.
Yeah, wholesale. I did both at the same time. So once I learned wholesale, I was still doing boutiques, and then I was also doing the retail at the farmers markets, art fairs, whatever.
So
that was just a different avenue.
Yeah, and at some point, the farmers markets, it was becoming like I can hear that it was wearing on you.
Correct.
And it was like, okay, you need to make a shift.
Correct. So I don't remember what the last market was. I think it was probably Frankfurt Farmers Market, Frankfurt Fall Festival, that massive show. And I remembered, I don't remember, it was a couple $1,000s for the booth. And it rained for those days. So my jewelry's wet, we're wet, the booth didn't sell as much as it normally does. And I'm like, this is no fun. I'd spent months preparing. And so I kind of took a step back and I said, well, let's not maybe do this for the rest of our lives. That's not what I want to do. And my dad was like, okay, sounds good. I can stop now. So I didn't really know what my next step was, but I knew it wasn't continuing. And so I took a 6-month break and I babysat. So I hung out with kids and I had some free time to figure out what I wanted. And I think the first relationship into this new world, or this new part of Kiwi Avenue, my dad at that time worked at Sprint, and he had a business colleague who needed a PowerPoint design. I'm like, okay, I can do PowerPoint. The PowerPoint presentation, when they gave it to me, was 30 slides of very dense, engineer lingo that the average everyday consumer has no idea what that is. And the client was Apple. So they needed a slide presentation instead of their 30, really dated, 80s graphics, kind of thing. They needed a 10 slide Apple approved presentation. And so I was able to sit there for hours and go, well, this doesn't belong and this doesn't make sense, and let's move this here. And I was able to condense it to a 10 slide, stunning, simple Apple, style presentation. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I can help businesses with this. And then I can use my design, on a computer. So then I did PowerPoints for quite a few months. And then somebody asked me for a website and I was like, sure, I've done those before. And then I just keep adding these new skills as I go. And then I started adding team members, and now I have quite a few team members that work with me on projects as well.
How long ago did that transition take place?
Just a couple of years ago. We've
Okay.
probably, this new part of Kiwi Avenue, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I am so happy. I am so grateful. I am using the skills that I didn't know were actual skills. I mean, all the trade show booth displays. I'm now able to help my current clients. You need a trade show booth? Perfect. I'll show you where to get the merchandise, where to get the display stands, where to get
Mm-hmm.
that correct. And one of my clients is actually interested in purchasing some of the jewelry too that I still have inventory of. So I'm going to be able to, buy some beautiful chains and, make it happen. So it's neat to be able to kind of see it all come full circle with still the same business name.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool. What would you say are the biggest creative skills you bring to the table? And then bearing that in mind, I'll ask you what are the biggest business skills?
Sure.
The strongest business skills you bring to the table?
Let me think. That's a great question. I would say, I think one of the creative skills is my ability to try something and work with a client and try to understand exactly what they're looking for. But then as long as the client trusts me, I take that idea and I turn it into what I think they're looking for. And usually 9 times out of 10, it's, spot on. So it's kind of that relationship with the client too, to make sure that we're getting to what we want in the end, which is, like I said, total trust process. Because if you don't have that trust, then it's hey, can we have 95 rounds of revisions, or hey, this isn't close yet, or versus I had a website recently, and we built this beautiful website, and I said, do you want to approve it before I hit the publish button? And she said, no, just publish it. I know it looks great, and and we can always. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is a really neat, totally different relationship. So
yeah.
So I don't know. So I guess my brainstorming or my collaborative spirit in the creative. I guess
I would say from the outside looking in,
sure,
that it sounds like your biggest the skill that really sets the clients on fire for what it is you do is your ability to probably ask the right questions to find out what it is they need, and then deliver the solution.
Cool.
And you build those relationships with them so that they trust you. And I suspect, as we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and Catherine has a very, very strong empathic quality to herself,
sure.
and it's applied to business. So, when you can see a problem for a client and maybe miss maybe the importance of it.
Yeah.
But if you can put yourself in your client's shoes and you understand who they are, what it is they do, what they need, and what the problem is, and what needs to be solved, and why it needs to be solved, then you can communicate that to the client. That's magic.
Yeah. And I love it. And I love doing that. And I love, your business is our business. When we work together, it's how can I best help you grow, help you, launch your merchandise line, launch your, coffee collection. What can I do?
Yeah.
And it's fun to be able to have clients that give me, creative freedom. Like we were talking about earlier, one of my clients designs like stickers and buttons and stuff like that. And we're going to do a buy one, give one.
Yeah.
Help somebody, give it to a friend, give it to a stranger, on the street that you see, or somebody in a coffee shop, or, and my random, just super side note, but I always try to at least once a week make a stranger laugh is my plan. I don't know why or where it came from or whatever it is, but whether it's, an Amazon rep or somebody at a coffee shop, I, try. And the more I bring this like kindness, helpful, positive energy, the happier my clients, the happier I feel, and it's kind of neat to be able to use design to help people or feed their soul or, help grow their business or do a lot of other things other than, creating a business card. It's so much more, that we bring to the table. And I didn't know any of these things going into it. It just, kind of ended up that way.
How about the business part of that question? Is it almost the same, or do you think, is there something different?
I think it's pretty similar. I'm trying to think if there's any other qualities or I think I'm looking at both the artistic and the business side of their problem when I'm looking at it. So what design solution can I provide for you, as well as what business solution to help you grow or, have more presence online or whatever. So I think it's, both sides of my brain are kind of working at the same time.
Yeah.
To help. Yeah.
It's quite a benefit to have experienced both sides of the fence, where you're not just creating product, but you're out selling it. And when you're out selling stuff in the cold and the weather, and it's like,
and you pick up the electricity because there's a storm coming, so you don't want to get correct. So you don't want to be electrocuted. Hurry up, undo the credit card processor. Correct.
I mean, that's a different problem maybe than a lot of clients have, but nonetheless, it's in your back pocket, and you go, it's hard to sell stuff.
Correct.
It's like there's a cost to selling. There's a challenge to selling, and
having the right merchandise or having the product, like I said, merchandised to fit the client's needs in your booth space. Do you need tall rotating racks for a poster company? Do you need a digital thing that someone can flip through? During COVID now that you can wipe down after every person. I mean, you've got to kind of adapt to. You can't just throw all your beautiful stuff in a bowl and expect someone to go, oh, that's worth $5. You've got to put it on a card and tell them about your organization and, have it hang nicely and put a, different.
Do you see things like that? Do you see things systematically?
I do. Yeah.
That's how you roll. Yeah. That's a special ability.
I didn't realize others don't do this, by the way. This is all like new to me, that I'm like, oh, everyone's brain does not necessarily think this way. It just all comes, I don't know if naturally or just because I've tried all sorts of things. It's just how I'm wired, I guess.
Yeah. So Catherine, what's your next thing? Like, I don't know, right? I'm leaving you in. What's your new thing?
Things. Correct. Yeah. There's some new things.
Yeah.
So I have in June, I'm launching the DIY gallery, which is templates and tutorials and all sorts of cool stuff for Canva that help you with your social media, your print materials, workbooks, all sorts of really cool stuff in templates. So then you can just customize it for yourself. All you have to do is change out your colors or that kind of stuff. And then we're launching the Kiwi Avenue Academy, which is a series. We've got 10 different courses that we're working on launching. So there will be a whole video library that you can come in and check out all the different. One of the classes is ideas to inventory. So do essentially that, figure out what you want and then what kind of merchandise you want to create with it. And then I show you different, print on demand options and how you don't necessarily have to purchase inventory in order to sell your stuff online. What else are we doing? We've got a coffee collection that we're launching in June. We have a Kindness Matters, like all these beautiful stickers and happiness related things. So there's quite a few things on the docket for June.
That's
But
exciting. That's big
yeah,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
it's neat. Yeah. To launch it all and to have, I love helping launch my clients' projects, but it's nice to be able to launch my own.
Yeah.
And as we had talked about a little earlier, I'm doing like my creative retreat or whatever next week by myself, just to sit down and put it all on paper and be able to help a lot of people and put my ideas to paper and actually launch for myself,
Yeah. Well,
And
and
it
when
takes
you,
longer for myself to launch than it does to help clients launch, I'm like, oh yeah,
yes,
you guys go, come on, you can do it in 2 weeks. And then,
yeah, yeah.
so
Don't I know it? That's so hard
exactly.
to do.
I need my own
But
cheerleader.
but when you launch your own
Yeah.
product as well, you have a better, yeah. Well, I mean, I do believe this. You have a better chance of earning income, but
Yeah,
beyond. You own it.
sure.
It's yours.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess another transition into, I'm going to call this Kiwi Avenue 3.0. So Kiwi Avenue 3.0, I actually met one of my current mentors, Mike, at the Self-Employment in the Arts Conference. And I guess that was, I don't know how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. And he was the keynote speaker. And I thought he had an amazing presentation and amazing energy. But I didn't know what I could give to him or how I could help him or whatever. So I was super nervous. All I could do is write my name on my card or my number, and I like slid it on his booth. I didn't even want to talk to him. And I remember he texted me. Oh, because I wanted to buy, he offered, Mike is a professional speaker that does both mental health speaking, and then at that point he did like drumming sessions with CEOs and top executives. And so he had these little tiny drum necklaces for sale. I texted him, or he texted me and said, hey, I've got one of those drum necklaces. Do you want it? And I said, okay, sure. So we met in the lobby of the hotel. And I give him my $10 and he pulls this drum necklace out of his pocket. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Well, it was hot because he had it in his pocket all day. And so I remember years later, I was like, I just wanted to tell you that you shouldn't keep your drum necklaces in your pocket because it's very awkward to give to people. And he laughed and he was like, okay, I will never do that again. But that relationship, has really, really helped me. He actually meets me every Tuesday, 3:30 recently. And we've been meeting at that date for the last couple of years. So whatever he's doing, whatever country he's in, wherever he's speaking, he's blocked out an hour of his time every single week for me to talk about whatever's on my mind. And having him, or knowing that he's there every Tuesday, I kind of prepare things. Ooh, let's talk about this, or let's work through this problem, or what do you think about this, email template I'm working on. So I think that, again, having all these mentors have been, so helpful because they've done it. You want to, grow and learn from what they've done. But the cool part is he always takes a step back and he's like, yeah, but Catherine, I'm also learning from you. And that was a great idea. And I liked, the way you said that. And so he's able to integrate some things that I've said, into his business. So it's a neat relationship, I suppose, again.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to some of the mentors you mentioned earlier that they said, hey, why don't we come alongside each other?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
We'll go from there.
It's never been and my business is here and your business is here. It's always been let's talk and, as two business owners, what do we want to accomplish, which is, again, is absolutely incredible.
It's generous.
It's so
this popped into my head the other day. It's so funny that it popped into my head because it was relevant to the conversation at the time and I never brought it up.
Okay.
But now that we're talking, it's like,
sure.
So when I was growing up, I played saxophone for a little bit and I wasn't any good at it. I wasn't really interested in it, but it was cool to be in band, anyway. So years later, this is like 5 years ago, I'm meeting my accountant at a nice restaurant to go over stuff. And we're leaving and he's got to go take care of something off to the side. And so I'm waiting up front, and there's this dude walks in ahead of me, and he was this tall guy, and he kind of had he was kind of, there was a hipster quality to him. And I hear him talking to somebody about him playing later. He's gigging. Cool. And he talks about saxophone, right? Nice. He's like, yeah, I'll be playing the saxophone. So I overhear this. So he gets done. He's unencumbered with anybody anymore. And I said, hey, did I hear you say that you play saxophone? And he said, I do. I said, that's so cool. I used to play saxophone years ago. And what he didn't know is I had been picking it up again and playing around with it and looking for some sheet music. And so I thought, I'll ask this guy, where do you find sheet music for saxophone? So I did. Sure. I asked him, where do you find sheet music? And he looked at me, and he kind of looked down at me, and he said, oh, I don't use sheet music. And I remember I looked at him, and kind of through a clenched jaw, I said, oh, okay. And I was like, I know who you are. Sure. And whatever, I'm sure he's a nice guy, or maybe, I don't know. But I was like, you're one of those people where you're the hero, you're the center of it, and it's all about you, at least in this realm. And I was like, boy,
that's fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go now. Correct.
Right.
This is good. This is good.
Right.
You couldn't even have made up there's no website you go to or something.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
But there's people like that,
Yeah.
And obviously that didn't turn into anything of.
No, it turned into a great story.
An anti-mentor. Exactly.
But you and I have had conversations that more recently than anything else that are just, they make me think about things that I could do differently. And it's interesting.
Yeah. Nice.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah.
So before we leave, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, what advice would you say that maybe you've shared that you want to hit on again, or maybe just some advice that you haven't even thought of yet that might be relevant to the audience, somebody who wants to make a living creatively?
Sure. I think what I've learned is a couple of things. I like to do what makes you happy, because clearly I've been doing that since, day one. I didn't know what necessarily that, would turn into. But the big thing is not being afraid to make mistakes, or not being afraid to fail. And I think being able to learn from all of your failures and take a step back, even if it's years later, take a step back and go, okay, that's, it didn't work necessarily how I wanted it to, but here's what I've learned. I think that's been my biggest, piece of advice that I even to myself, I give. I'm like, okay, that's okay. We can, we can learn from that. And we, hey, that wasn't so swell, but now we have this, or, hey, that, COVID wasn't great, but now we have this, this coffee line and this beautiful Kiwi Avenue Academy, and all sorts of, cool things have come.
Yeah.
From difficult situations.
Can we dig a little deeper into one thing you said? I'm really curious.
Sure, of course.
Because I think of, you trying to capture your jewelry as it's flying 50 miles per hour out of the booth.
It is, and it's wet and it's soggy, correct.
Or up at 5 a.m. to go manage that, or, pulling your hair out over something else. Correct. I can't imagine you're really happy during those times.
I was always focusing on the client that I was going to make happy at the end. So it was like the end goal, the mom with the, the little baby that, or the mom to be who has, a baby on the way, and she's adding a birthstone to this necklace, for her other two kids that she's already had. I mean, those are the things, because for sure at 5 a.m., I am not a happy camper, getting up to load the car. Yeah. I'd much rather skip all of that, be at the show selling, so it's kind of the end goal I was thinking about without, knowing, but that's kind of what kept me.
Yeah, that's really good. I asked that because I think
that's cool.
I've been thinking about happy for a while, and I'll hear people talk about their kids. Well, I just want them to be happy, and I hear happy, happy, and I'm like, I think there's something more than happy though.
Sure.
Because there's a cost. There's a cost to doing things.
Correct.
And I think I I think happiness is kind of fleeting and there's something deeper. There's like a joy, purpose, meaning, serving. There's something in
Yeah.
there that's more relevant.
Yeah.
But
And one of the things that I just came up with recently, we lead with Kiwi. So
yeah,
kindness, innovation, work ethic, and integrity.
awesome.
So, that's how we've
Yeah,
defined. Yeah. Um, and it's design that can help, solve your problems and make the world a little bit happier and better place.
yeah,
So
that's really good stuff.
that's what we're trying to do, you know,
So
every day.
where can people find you?
Sure. So I'm online at kiwiavenue.com. You can find us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And then soon on our Kiwi Avenue website, we'll have all these beautiful coffee lines, Kiwi Avenue Academy, and then the DIY gallery as well. So,
Awesome. Thanks
yeah,
for sharing your story. Thanks for being my guest.
thank you. This was wonderful. And thank you for having me. I'm so
You
glad we were
rock.
able to do this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Cool.
Okay. Cheers.
Perfect. Cheers.
Hey, what did I tell you? Catherine's pretty cool, isn't she? I just love that there was this middle school girl who saw an opportunity to help her friends and wanted to make this jewelry, and then saw an opportunity to sell some product, to sell her art, and then that just spurred on a relentless pursuit of making and selling jewelry at farmers markets and way on up the list to high end buyers, and that continued on through college, and then college uh, just exposed her to so many incredible mentors. I talk a lot about mentors on this show. We need mentors. We need people to show us the way to go. They've been there before us and they've made a load of mistakes that we are going to be the beneficiaries of if we just sit and listen to them and then do some of the stuff they tell us to do. And if we can work with them and if they'll come alongside of us, oh my goodness, just the benefits that are just going to rain down on us and help us to grow into amazing, successful artists, business people, and just people in general. I love that at some point she realized she needed to pivot out of retail. And so she made that move and she took a 6 month break and then began to work on a marketing business. And that kind of came out of that time with her dad, where her dad had this presentation that needed to be made to Apple. And she was offered that opportunity and she took it and found that not only did she like to create, but she liked to tell stories. She liked to help clarify communication for clients between, one client to another, and to do it artfully, to do it with story. And that got her involved in marketing and branding and ultimately to helping clients, serving clients, and then making her own product, which she is just in the midst of launching. And it's just so cool. I encourage you to follow Catherine on Instagram and all these other places, and the links are below. And she just rocks. So thank you so much, Catherine, for opening our eyes to how we can be relentless in the pursuit of our art and our craft and our business, and we can do it from a very young age, and then we can pivot when we need to. Just such great stuff. So thanks so much, Catherine. I really appreciate you. And that's it for this week's episode. So did I say so? This week's episode. So if you yeah, I just threw myself off. Let me go ahead and finish this up like I usually do. It's now time for you to take what you learned from this episode and to put it to work for you. Wherever you have been encouraged and you are excited about some information you've gleaned from this episode, how can you plug it into your life, to your journey, to your business, to your art? So get busy about the business of getting that next step. You're climbing that ladder. you're digging a hole, to dig for gold. You're running a mile. You're doing all these other things, right? Whatever it is that floats your boat as far as being successful, and you're going to do that very next thing that you need to do to be successful this week. Okay? I don't know if you need to go find some new clients. I don't need to know if you need to put together a new presentation. I don't know if you need to learn a new skill. I don't know if you need to add to your portfolio, but whatever it is, get about the business of doing that, and you're going to get that much closer to success, to income, to whatever it is you're after in your business. And remember, we're really not working against anybody else. We're working for ourselves. We're striving to get to that next spot in our lives, in our career, in our crafts, right? Okay. Have a spectacular week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.